As you may already know, I've been slowly kitbashing myself a full Space Marine army themed around the Raptors chapter. I've already made several entries into this video series, but each has been an infantry squad, until now. At the end of my last video, I outlined what I had left to tackle from my rough army list and asked you what you would most like to see next, and the vast majority of you asked to see me convert a Land Raider Crusader for my Raptors. But before we tackle that Land Raider, let's take a look at some other tanks in War Thunder, the sponsors of this video. If you're anything like me, then you'll likely have an interest in military history or vehicle combat games, which means that a game like War Thunder is perfect for you. In it, you'll get to take control over 2,500 tanks, planes, helicopters, and even ships of 10 major nations from the 1920s to the modern day. Now, regardless of what kind of game mode you're in the mood for, War Thunder has you covered. If you're looking for fast-paced action, then jump into arcade. If it's hardcore realism you're after, then try out simulator mode. And if you want a balanced experience, then give realism a go. Even on lower end machines, War Thunder runs great thanks to its optimized Daegor engine. You don't need any extra hardware either. You can take control of a tank and even fly aircraft with just a mouse and a keyboard or a controller. Not only can War Thunder be played on PC, PlayStation and Xbox, it is even available on iOS and Android mobile devices, so now you can play wherever you go, and best of all, it's free to play. One thing I personally love about War Thunder is just the level of detail that is depicted in its vehicles. Getting to see these historic tanks, ships and aircraft accurately modeled down to their engines, fuel tanks and even crew is just amazing to see. Even the damage is realistic. If you get hit, you'll see exactly how your vehicle is affected with an X-ray view that shows you where the shell penetrated and what caused the destruction. Plus, you can fully customize your vehicles with camouflages, historical markings, and even more. So, if you want to join over 70 million players in epic battles across PC, PlayStation, Xbox, and even on mobile, then use my links in the pinned comment and description below. If you're a new player or someone who hasn't played on PC or console in the last 6 months, you can grab yourself a bonus pack, which includes premium vehicles, the exclusive Eagle of Valor Decorator, 100,000 Silver Lions, and 7 days of premium account access. But hurry! It's a limited time offer. With this being a vehicle kit bash, the majority of the build simply followed the instructions. The Land Raider needed to be roughly the same size and shape to be usable in a game, so I set about removing and cleaning up all the parts from the sprue required to build the basic structure of the Land Raider. However, this didn't mean that I couldn't make some changes. As I've already demonstrated many times before in the series, I like to remove any overt iconography from my Raptors. I've always viewed any ostentatious detailing or decoration to run opposite to the Raptors' pragmatic and utilitarian approach to warfare, and so I removed everything that wasn't structural or instrumental by using a combination of my clippers, knife, and a fine grit sandpaper to create a smooth, featureless surface. Once all of those details had been removed, I began to assemble the Land Raider as per the instructions, with the omission of the top plate, side sponsons, and tracks. Now, while I could have simply built the Land Raider Redeemer kit, removed the iconography and slapped on a few stowage items, I wanted to create something that would help my Land Raider to stand out against the stock variants, and that was to give it a turret. Fortunately, the Gladiator kit is essentially an impulsor with an extra sprue that contains a turret, turret ring, weaponry, and extra equipment. So while I had to buy a whole extra vehicle for this build, I am still able to add that impulsor to my force further down the line. In order to attach this Gladiator's top plate to my Land Raider, I first needed to remove the vertical sides of that plate. This can be done with a saw or clippers, but I opted to break out the Dremel to make things a little quicker. With those side panels removed, I was able to get a better idea of how the new plate lined up against the top of the Land Raider. This revealed to me a few spots that needed to be removed, particularly the aerials. I also needed to narrow the top plate slightly to allow the new panel to slot over the top. Again, I used my Dremel for this as it made short work of removing the plastic. This whole process was very iterative, with me making frequent comparisons and small adjustments. This slowed the process somewhat, but it did ensure a much better fit. It was one of these comparisons that led me to saw away the two of the rear overhanging panels that held the round vents on them. These were sawn off and cleaned up, at which point I was finally ready to glue the Gladiator panel to the Land Raider's top plate. I didn't attach that top plate to the rest of the Land Raider just yet though. First, I needed to block up one of the cupola holes towards the front of the Land Raider. To do this, I first created a support from a piece of off-cut sprue that was glued to the underside of the hull. This would allow me to attach the Hunter-Killer launcher panel that came with the tank to it. The panel is pretty much the exact size of the hull, but it wouldn't have stayed in place without that piece of sprue. With this hole plugged up, I was finally able to attach the modified top plate of the Land Raider to the rest of the vehicle. This did highlight a number of gaps though that would need to be filled in. Now, I've never been that great with plasticard. I can never cut it properly to fill things in right, especially on the sloped, segmented surfaces that I had here. So I settled on filling in the gaps with a mixture of green stuff and milliput. Generally speaking, a 75% green stuff and a 25% milliput mix allowed me to benefit from the smoother finish of green stuff while still maintaining the ability to sand the dried putty. Filling the gaps involved rolling out a few strips and pressing them into the gaps until I was able to achieve a roughly vertical surface in line with the top panel. Once all the gaps had been filled and smoothed out, I left it to cure and harden overnight. Now that the putty had hardened, I could begin the slow and gradual process of filing, scraping and sanding it flat. My goal here was to make sure that the vertical panels were as flat as possible whilst keeping the existing sloped armor shape. Normally, the frontal weaponry of the Land Raider is the twin-linked assault cannon, but as I'm intending on mounting this to my Gladiator turret instead, I needed something else. As both the Land Raider and the Gladiator sprue feature multi-melters, this seemed to be the best weapon option. This swap was achieved with me first sawing away the assault cannon's barrel and flattening out the cut. The multi-melter barrels were then glued in place with only minor further adjustments needed. I repeated this process with the second half of the gun before fully assembling the turret. I did, however, keep the armor panel separate, just to make painting it a little easier. From one turret to another, I then proceeded to assemble the Gladiator turret as per the instructions, attaching the Gatling cannon that I mentioned earlier. However, I couldn't use the cupola from the Gladiator kit as this is shared with the Impulsor. Fortunately, the Land Raider hatches fit just as well. By this stage, I'd built the bulk of the tank, and the only thing left to do now was to add those extra details, which for the Raptors meant there was quite a bit to add. After attaching the Gladiator aerial and sensor array to the back of the turret, I then cut and trimmed down the Land Raider aerial until it could be inserted into the gap on the right side of the turret. For a few of those extra details, I dipped into the Horus Heresy vehicle range and borrowed a few accessories. Particularly the Hunter-Killer missile, which was attached at a 45-degree angle at the back of the turret. Following this, the small tabs on the side were also clipped away and replaced with a couple of Horus Heresy smoke launchers. Next, I borrowed the targeting array from the Gladiator's laser destroyer by clipping away the arm. This was further trimmed and adjusted until it could be placed just behind where the new multi-melter turret would sit. From here, all I was left to do now was to attach a few of the extra stowage items. These were mostly taken from the Gladiator sprue and scattered across the hull until I was satisfied with the amount of extra equipment, completing the tank. Now, when it came to paint this Land Raider, I simply followed the exact same steps that I'd used to paint the rest of the Raptors, just scaled up a little. I'll include a link to my Raptors painting guide in the card, and I would highly recommend using sub-assemblies for this, as it will make painting much easier and faster. Once the painting was complete, I was left with this. And so that completes my build of this turreted Land Raider Redeemer variant, which I'm dubbing the Nessarax pattern, based on one of the zoological synonyms for a raptor. While I could have skipped most of this build and saved myself some time and money in the process, I think that what I'm left with is not only unique, but also makes sense given the Raptor's proclivity for functionality. The stock Land Raider is fairly weak from the rear, so having an anti-infantry, anti-light armor weapon with a full 360-degree arc of fire would certainly add to the vehicle's longevity. So, since my last video and a few point adjustments, I've slightly tweaked my list so the units still left to add to my force are 3 more aggressors, 6 eradicators, an apothecary biologist, 5 heavy intercessors, and a lieutenant. There will be more after this list, but I'd like a good solid starting point to build up from. So let me know in the comments below what out of that list you would most like to see me tackle next time. Now, as always, if you'd like to recreate this build, I will include all the links to the kits and paints used in this video down in the description below, including where you can pick up my Dead Animal Bits kit. And once again, thank you to War Thunder for sponsoring this video. Remember, you can play it for free on PC, PlayStation, Xbox, and even on mobile. Just use those links below to get premium vehicles, the exclusive Eagle of Valor Decorator, 100,000 Silver Lions, and 7 days of premium account access if you're a new player or haven't played in the last 6 months across PC or consoles. But hurry, it's only available for a limited time, so don't miss out. But before I go, let me just say a huge thank you to everyone who continues to help keep this channel going. And if you'd like to support me too, you can get early access to ad-free videos, exclusive merchandise, and even your name in the credits. Simply follow my Patreon link below or hit the join button. Just like my top Patreon supporters did, who are Nail5, Axel Jonsson, Banjevrian, Berserker, Dakota Gaburi, Daniel Dowling, Immature Creations, Cornbread, Maciej Savitsky, Matt Brewer, Molly Mork, Morgan, Mr. Grimm, Nima, Older Than Time, Pale Juice, Ryan Little, Samuel Sepulveda, Swedsman, Tim, and One of Us. And my top channel members, who are Alex Verne, Dave, Doug H, Guy Bazant, Coach Cato, Mark Taylor, Nerdington Paint, Omni Tom, Philip Poya, S.O., That One Tech Priest, The City of Christ, The Sire Acquired, Trooper Geo, and Whale Tussler. So until next time, thanks for watching, and goodbye.